Well, happy Friday, everybody. There's a ton of people in the chat room. Happy Friday.
So fun.
I know, right?
Always a party. Thanks for joining us, guys.
You know what always blows me away is that it's so strange to me that in 2015, I mean, you couldn't have done this 20 years ago where you can gather a bunch of people and talk about digestion.
Yes.
You know, it's just such an odd thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have a whole show on digestion today, and it's just so bizarre.
Oh, man. Well, I bet 100 years ago, well, they might have needed it as bad as
I'm
now.
sure
but
they did. Actually, they probably had better digestion 100 years ago.
It seems like, knowing my grandparents, their whole generation, they didn't seem to have as many issues. But
that's
man,
true.
Very, very appropriate. Time
Isn't
appropriate, isn't it?
Yeah, we're excited to have Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride on the show today. Let's see, what episode is this going to be? 379. So Kate has been so kind to offer to take show notes along with Maggie on her lap.
Yeah.
So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/379, you can grab the show notes for any books or websites or anything that Dr. Natasha mentions during the show. That's at extremehealthradio.com/379. And another cool little feature we have on our website is if you would like to sign up to our newsletter list and never miss an episode, and also get a couple great bonuses about how I overcame my food addiction, an audio course, you can text Get Healthy to 33444. Get Healthy to 33444. You'll get immediate access. You can just do that right on your phone.
Quite a few people have been utilizing that, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
It's amazing.
This technology.
It's a love-hate relationship with cell phones, with me and cell phones,
all the time.
But it's a cool feature. So if you do have a cell phone, which is probably 99% of people listening, you can text Get Healthy to 33444 and grab that ebook and guide. And also, I wanted to let you know that we are now commercial-free on our shows, but it's sort of an experiment. So in order for the shows to continue to be commercial-free, we need your help. And so if you go to extremehealthradio.com/join, you can help us keep the shows commercial-free because we obviously have to pay our bills. So we don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation. So on that page, you can learn about different ways you can support us in our store with really, really great products like the Bellicon Rebounder, saunas, lasers, Q-Laser that we have, all kinds of really cool stuff in our store, blenders and things like that. So check that out, extremehealthradio.com/join, and you can learn how to support us that way. And is that about it for the
business part?
The business part, the housekeeping part?
Yeah, right. I think so.
Cool.
Yay.
All right. Now we're going to dive deep into the bowels of our bowels with Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. Her website is dr-natasha.com and gaps.me. You can find her there as well. And she holds a degree in medicine and postgraduate degrees in both neurology and human nutrition. She has a clinic in Cambridge, in case you haven't heard, and she specializes in nutrition as well as in children and adults with behavioral and learning disabilities and adults, and does a lot of work with autistic children too, and digestive and immune system disorders. She's the author of the book that we have, which is awesome, called Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And I believe it's around 5 o'clock in England right now. Is that correct, Dr. Natasha?
It is. Hello, everybody.
Hello. So did you work most of the day today in your clinic?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. And so what kinds of people are you seeing mostly come to your clinic? Is it mostly digestive issues?
Well, I'm a neurologist, so I worked traditionally with neurological illness and psychiatric illness. And a large percent of my patients were children with learning disabilities. Autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, oppositional defiant disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and so on and so on. I would say that 85% of these children don't fit into any diagnostic box. They may have a little bit of autistic features, a bit of ADHD, a bit of dyslexia, a bit of dyspraxia, a bit of something else unique to this child. So none of it fits into any diagnostic box. And these are the children with whom doctors usually procrastinate. They ask parents to bring the child for observation 6 months later, and 6 months later, and again 6 months later, in order to get the diagnosis. And precious time is being wasted while the child could have been helped. Because all these diagnostic labels are purely descriptive. They don't include in themselves what causes the disorder and what actually we can do to alleviate it, to get rid of it. The real disorder, the real disease itself is GAPS. That is the abbreviation for gut and psychology syndrome and gut and physiology syndrome. In the English language, both abbreviate to GAPS. which is a digestive disorder.
So have you ever found a situation where it was not a digestive disorder?
No.
No. Wow,
No.
isn't that wild?
I find that in 100% of my patients, it all begins in the digestive system. It all begins in the gut. And indeed, the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, all those thousands of years ago, made the same statement that all disease begins in the gut. And the more we learn with our modern scientific tools, the more we realize just how correct he was. Indeed, that's true.
So there seems to be, or there is, I should say, a direct connection. What's going on with the connection? How can you bridge that gap between what's going on in someone's gut and their brain and behavioral issues? What's the connection there?
Well, when we talk about the digestive system, we have to talk about what lives inside it and what looks after it and what controls it. And that's our gut flora. Majority of people know that there's some bacteria living inside their tummy, inside their digestive system, and that is called our gut flora. The modern scientific term for it is microbiome. There's a lot of research going on in that area now. Well, the recent research has discovered the fact that about 90% of all cells and all genetic material in the human body is our gut flora. 90%.
Oh my goodness.
So we are just 10%. A shell, a habitat for this mass of microbes which live inside us. And we ignore them at our peril. And the more we're researching them, the more we're realizing that actually we are not in charge. They are in charge of what's going on in the rest of the body, not only the digestive system. In a healthy person, the gut flora is dominated by so-called beneficial microbes. And we have beneficial bacteria and beneficial fungi and beneficial viruses and beneficial protozoa and even beneficial worms. Worms are an important part of our gut flora. And all of these creatures live together in harmony with each other. They all plant each other and harvest each other and eat each other and support each other and control each other and don't allow any one of them to get out of balance.
So they have a bit of a pecking order then too.
Absolutely. Apart from the so-called beneficial ones, there are trillions of downright disease-causing microbes in there, pathogenic and opportunistic microbes, which may cause disease, may not cause disease, depending on the environment, depending on circumstances. In a healthy person with a healthy gut flora, the beneficial group predominates, and it controls the rest and doesn't allow them to cause any trouble. It even employs them to do some useful jobs for us, such as producing some vitamins and amines and some other important nutrients for us. But trouble is, we live in a world where we are increasingly subjected to influences which wipe out our beneficial microbes in the gut. Antibiotics are one of the major factors. Broad-spectrum antibiotics every course wipes out your beneficial microbes in the digestive system, leaving a gaping hole in that harmonious community. So suddenly the harmony is removed and imbalance is introduced. So all the microbes which these beneficial microbes have been controlling suddenly come out of control, get out of control, start growing, developing large colonies, occupying large niches in the digestive system. The beneficial microbes do recover after antibiotics stop, but it takes them between 2 weeks to 2 months to recover. And that's a window of opportunity for the pathogens to grow and become stronger. Once they're established in certain parts of the digestive system, the recovering beneficial microbes have a fight on their hands, and they quite often don't win.
Isn't
they
that
can't push them out.
Now, Dr. Natasha, I've heard studies in the past that talked about how when you take antibiotics, sometimes these beneficial strains die, and they sort of just die forever. And I even heard one study that was talking about the human being should have around 1,000 different strains of bacteria, and now we're down to about 300 or 400. Have you heard that?
It's trillions.
It's trillions.
Our science, the more we're researching, the more we're realizing that it's not 1,000, it's not 100,000, it's not 1 million, it's much, much more.
Wow.
Our science is still in its infancy in terms of researching our gut flora.
Do these
microbiome?
Do these antibiotics? Do you know if they, like you said, they can kill? But do we ever get some of these strains back if we take antibiotics? I guess it depends on which type we take, right?
It depends on the whole balance. It depends on the diet. It depends on many other factors that are going on. But in the majority of people, if we don't take specific steps in restoring the gut flora, such as taking probiotics, eating fermented foods, eating the right sort of balanced diet that the gut flora requires, then from every course of antibiotic to the next course of antibiotic and to the next course of antibiotic, there's less and less good left in the gut and more pathogens and opportunists replacing them.
So people should be really actively following a protocol that sort of heals and seals their gut, but also restores this beneficial bacteria, right?
Absolutely, and that's called the GAPS nutritional protocol.
We have a listener in the chat room that was talking about how they loved your work and they read your book, and but he wants to know about drinking. Speaking of beneficial bacteria, he says, what does she think about in terms of liver cleansing, drinking beet kvass? And please tell her that I love her work and I healed my gastritis from bone broth and doing GAPS 5 months ago.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm always happy to hear that. Beet kvass is wonderful. It's a fermented food. And we use all sorts of fermented foods in the diet. Vegetable-based and milk-based. And we ferment fish and we can ferment all sorts of foods. The more they are fermented, the more we are swallowing mouthfuls of beneficial microbes with every mouthful of food. And that populates the digestive system, and that alters the whole balance in there and allows the gut flora to straighten itself up.
I've always been curious with these different fermented foods, like they've got the kimchi and the sauerkraut at the health food store. You can make these things. Excuse me. With these types of different fermented foods, even with kefirs and things, are you getting different bacteria and strains of bacteria with each different type of fermented food?
Yes, you do. You get a different mixture with every fermented food. But there are some main microbes which live on all organic vegetables, such as Lactobacillus plantarum, for example. And that's what accomplishes the fermentation process for us when we do the sauerkraut and other natural fermentation methods, when we don't add any bacteria. We just chop up the cabbage, we add salt, and we pack it so it drowns in its own juice. And so because it is an anaerobic fermentation, it has to be drowned in its own juice, so there's no excess of oxygen. And leave it to ferment. And it's the bacteria that live naturally on the leaves of cabbage that will ferment the cabbage for you.
So would that be called like a wild fermentation versus a controlled?
It is. Yeah. It is a wild fermentation, and it is what Mother Nature has intended. Even if you leave your natural organic salad that you've made for 24 hours at a room temperature, not in the fridge, it will ferment slightly. It will be a fermented food.
Here's an interesting question in the chat. This goes along with the antibacterial. We have Ern who says, the wonderful Dr. Natasha, I tip my hat to you. I'm wondering if antibacterial herbs like neem and cat's claw also wipe out the good bacteria.
It is difficult to say that because, the many manufacturers claim that they don't, that they're somehow so clever that they pick up the bad ones and leave the good ones.
Oh,
right.
That somehow seems unlikely.
Okay.
What they do, they just, they will attack the majority, whatever bacterium is in the majority.
Okay.
That particular environment. That's what they will try and bring down, and hopefully create an environment where other microbes can come in and can start growing as well, and hopefully restore the balance. So you never take cat's claw on its own or any other of those natural antimicrobials on their own. You always combine it with the right diet, with the probiotics, with the fermented foods. So we are bringing in the microbes that we do want to live there, we do want to grow there, to replace the ones that we're trying to reduce in numbers.
I think I've heard you say that most of the stool that we pass out is bacteria, right? So we constantly need to reintroduce this good bacteria.
Well, all bacteria multiply very quickly. They produce trillions of babies in a blink of an eye. They're absolutely amazing.
Like cockroaches.
That's right. And they don't live very long. They die. Many of them, they don't live very long. So they've got very short lives. So they die out, and it's their dead bodies, plus all the organic matter that they live on, in the bowel, and plus many, many toxic substances and byproducts of our metabolism, which the body collects from your muscles, from your brain, from your lungs, from all the other organs, delivers them to the wall of the bowel, and then transports them inside the bowel. They form quite a substantial part of the stool. So your stool is not just food that, went through you and gets eliminated, whatever hasn't digested properly. Most of it is microbes, dead microbes and alive microbes, plus organic matter, plus toxins.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when people are talking about a lack of beneficial bacteria in our bodies, you mentioned antibiotics, and I mean, every one of us have taken some amount of antibiotics. We've had people say that, the whole gut terrain and gut biome changes forever once, on one round of antibiotics. But where else are people having an issue with having good bacteria? There's probably a million different ways that people are losing these things, right?
Absolutely. There are many, many influences that will change and alter gut flora. And not only gut flora, we've got microbial population all over your skin, on your mucous membranes, even inside organs. We have microbes in many places. We don't just have them. We're not sterile inside.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. We have microbes living inside our muscles, inside our heart, inside our lungs, inside all of our organs, basically. And many things which will change the environment in the body will alter the flora, the bodily flora. All pharmaceutical drugs taken on a chronic basis, on a repeat prescription basis, will do that.
Really?
Contraceptive pill is one of the very important drugs here, because ladies have to take it for quite a few years before they're ready to start their family. And that alters the gut flora and the whole bodily flora quite substantially, very seriously. It has a devastating effect on the gut flora, actually. And that is a very important fact that you mentioned, because the babies that are born from us, as far as we know, have no gut flora. The digestive system is sterile, pretty much. And as the baby goes through the birth canal at the moment of birth, the baby swallows first mouthfuls of bacteria in the birth canal, and that becomes the baby's gut flora. So whatever lives in mom's vagina becomes the flora of the baby. Where does the vaginal flora come from? It comes from the bowel of the woman. So if the woman has abnormal gut flora herself, she will have abnormal flora in her birth canal, and that's what her baby gets at birth. We have now a very serious situation, because every year the group of ladies who are having babies have that little bit more damaged gut flora than the ladies who were having babies last year, the previous years. The whole situation is snowballing on the humanity, particularly in the Western world and particularly in the English-speaking countries. And that reflects in the epidemic of physical and mental illness in our babies and children. Because these children are acquiring very abnormal gut flora from the start of their life. And that means these children become immune compromised, because the immune system of a baby is immature, it needs education. And establishment of the normal gut flora is a major educational event in the maturation of the immune system. If the baby has acquired abnormal flora from the start of life, then the baby is left immune compromised. And we have all these babies who now acquire abnormal flora from the mother, and every year this flora is becoming deeper and deeper abnormal. And as a result, we have an epidemic of illnesses which stem from that abnormal gut flora, such as autism, and ADHD, and obsessive compulsive disorder, and bipolar disorder, and oppositional defiant, and schizophrenia, hundreds of different labels of mental illness, and diabetes type 1, and allergies, and asthma, and eczema, and autoimmune disease in children.
And even things like colic and things like that too, right?
Colic is a clear symptom of abnormal gut flora. What happens with colic is the abnormal gut flora produces gases, and at the same time it causes inflammation in the wall of the digestive system. So when a bubble of gas accumulates in a particular part of the digestive system of the baby, it stretches it and causes pain. So the baby will be crying until that gas gets released or moves to a less painful area of the digestive system. And that's your colic. So when a baby has a colic, that's the first alarm bell for the parents. The gut flora is abnormal. You must deal with it. Otherwise, more serious problems will come later.
Now, how would they, going back to the birth process itself, I want to ask really quickly about how mothers can increase the gut flora with their little babies and children. But when a mother gives birth and the baby comes out of the birth canal, all of that beneficial bacteria gets swallowed by the child, but it also gets spread all over the skin of the baby, and isn't that one of the first things that they sort of wipe off of a baby, and they take all of that off there?
No, they don't. They don't sterilize babies. You just wipe the baby so that it's dry, but you can't remove all of that bacteria. Yes, the baby's skin gets populated, and the eyes, and all the mucous membranes, and the nose, and the mouth, all over the place. Absolutely.
And so when a mother gives birth to a young baby, and I've heard of different techniques where people are putting acidophilus. They're putting a little bit of that on the nipple, so when they breastfeed, the baby gets some of that. Well, are there any techniques that you know about that would do really well for a young baby?
Absolutely. The first thing to do for every pregnant woman, and that is what in traditional cultures women used to know and used to do, particularly in the third trimester of pregnancy, it is essential for the woman to prepare her birth canal for the baby, which means she needs to populate it with beneficial flora. So what women used to do, they used to ferment their own yogurt or kefir at home, because people used to have animals. They used to have goats and cows and other animals, and they had milk. And they would have a bowl of this yogurt or kefir in the bathroom, and every day after her normal shower, bath or wash, she would apply a handful of that all over her groin. You don't have to be invasive. You just apply it wherever you can reach with your hand. And it travels up the vagina, up the urethra into the bladder, because the bladder has its own flora.
Wow.
Bladder flora, absolutely. And that's how the woman used to prepare her birth canal for the birth. And that is very important, particularly during pregnancy, because pregnancy is ruled by a hormone called progesterone, and it is an immune-suppressing hormone. So if a woman has any overgrowth of candida or any other fungi in her body or any other pathogens in her body, that's the time when they will overgrow, because the immune system is suppressed in a woman. That's why so many women nowadays during pregnancy have yeast infections and thrush and other problems which are related to that. So if she uses this method of applying homemade yogurt or kefir all over her groin, all over her breasts, all over her armpits, and any other area of her body which gets thrush, which gets a fungal rash.
Oh, okay.
She will remove that infection. She will prevent any problems. And also, we have many women who test positive for streptococcus in their vagina. It is a standard test now in the mainstream medicine. And if the woman tests positive, then she's put on intravenous antibiotics during labor and afterwards, and the baby gets antibiotics too.
Oh my
and
goodness.
that's not a good start of life for the baby.
So how long would
when we use these applications of yogurt and kefir during pregnancy, and also what we do, we either use a tampon soaked in kefir, inserted into the vagina at bedtime, or women use a couple of good quality probiotics, couple of capsules of good quality probiotic, which they insert into their vagina at bedtime, once a week or once in a few days during the last trimester of pregnancy.
Okay, yeah.
Streptococcus gets removed by this beneficial flora. So they don't have to have IV antibiotics, and they don't have to do all of this.
That's wild. Okay, so those are some really good techniques for women. And how long would they leave the kefir in or on their bodies when they do that? Would they go to bed with it on, or
overnight?
You just apply a little bit. You walk around, so it dries up on you, and then you dress up. That's all.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
You don't have to. Easy. That's right. You don't apply a huge amount, obviously. You apply something practical that dries quickly and is enough. Yeah.
That's good. Most women don't want to leave their house.
And after the child is born, we can dust the nipple with a good quality probiotic, because probiotics can be just a capsule, can be opened, and a little bit of powder gets put on a nipple, and that's what you give to your baby. So babies receive probiotics from the beginning. Or the woman can continue applying this homemade yogurt or kefir all over her breasts. And that would also supply the milk ducts in the milk glands of women also have their own flora. And that also is dominated by lactobacilli, by beneficial microbes, beneficial bacteria. So if a woman uses this practice during pregnancy, her breasts will be prepared for breastfeeding, and they will be populated by beneficial microbes rather than anything pathogenic. And if she continues with this practice during the whole of her breastfeeding period for a year, that will maintain that flora very well.
So you recommend at least a year for breastfeeding?
At least.
At least.
Many of my patients in my clinic, ladies, they want to feed much longer. Some women feed 4 or 5 years. And if you look at traditional cultures in China, they used to feed children up to the age of 11, 12.
Wow, that's amazing.
Occasionally, obviously, they're just topping up.
Wow.
Not as a main source of nutrition for the child, but topping up at least once a day or twice a day, a little bit of milk.
So
that boosts immunity in children.
So what a lot of people, think is that just because a woman breastfeeds, it's much, it's sort of the cat's meow and it's the best thing ever. But what we really want is a woman who breastfeeds, but also has lots of beneficial bacteria. Because, I presume that if you don't have a lot of beneficial bacteria as a woman and you breastfeed, it's still orders of magnitude better than bottle feeding. But you also want to make sure that you take these steps to have a lot of beneficial bacteria and you breastfeed, right?
Trouble is, as I was saying, the whole epidemic of abnormal gut flora, abnormal bodily flora is escalating. It's snowballing on the humanity. And we have many women now whose milk is very toxic. They have to stop breastfeeding. It is counterproductive for the baby.
Really?
We have many women who say that the baby just falls asleep on her breast after 1 or 2 mouthfuls, because she's got such an abnormal gut flora, and many toxins that flora produces are opiates, are in the form of opiates, just like morphine and heroin and cannabis. And they absorb through the damaged gut wall of the woman, circulate in her blood. And milk of any animal is our white blood with red blood cells removed. Mm-hmm. So it's her blood, basically, flowing through her breasts. So whatever toxins are flowing in her blood will be in her milk, and that's what the baby gets. So if the baby got a mouthful of opiates, of course the baby falls asleep. And these are the women who say that they feed 24 hours a day, and the baby is not putting weight on, the baby is hungry, and she's exhausted. Mm-hmm. Because the baby it's too toxic. And many babies develop illnesses such as diabetes type 1 or colitis or vomiting, diarrhea, and all sorts of different problems because the mother's milk is just too toxic.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible for a woman after she gives birth and say that that's happening with her baby? Is it possible for that to be remedied? Wow. Like, could she start taking a ton of these good strains and actually keep nursing and it be beneficial, or is it kind of a lost cause at that point?
Trouble is that it takes time for the woman's gut flora to change.
Yeah.
And in order to change it, pathogens have to be removed. They have to be replaced with beneficial flora, which can take many, many months. Mm-hmm. And she will be going through a die-off period when the pathogens will be dying, and they release larger amounts of toxins when that happens than usual. So her milk is likely to become even more toxic.
Right. Okay.
So if a woman has a very toxic milk, she has to stop breastfeeding. She can't just remedy that. Of course, she can try as a stage, if she really wants to continue, she can try as a stage to remove all, just go on the GAPS full diet, on the full GAPS diet, remove all the industrial foods, all the non-organic foods from her diet, clean up her diet.
That's the problem, though. Most women probably don't stop, do they? They don't really know that their milk is toxic, so they're just reinfecting their baby, and they don't have no idea what they're doing.
It's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In many, many children that I see now, and children are getting more severe, unfortunately.
Are they?
What used to work 5 years ago with these babies doesn't work anymore. We have to do deeper intervention, more severe intervention. And many babies are born which are simply not viable. No matter what we do, they're still very, very sick, these children.
That's amazing. That's just so amazing. What would you recommend for people or for women that can't do breast milk or can't produce breast milk? We had a doctor on, Dr. Bob Marshall, years ago, and he was talking about doing high amounts of nutritional yeast, I think it was, or I forget what it was, and lots of water and these B vitamins and this whole concoction that he has put together, helping women produce breast milk. But if they're not able to produce breast milk, do you know of any way that they can start? And if they can't, and they just can't seem to do it, what would you recommend for breast milk as a replacement?
As they say, every new discovery is a well-forgotten old one.
I know, right?
Humanity had a solution to this, which worked beautifully, and that was wet nursing. People used to live in close communities, and if one lady who gave birth, for whatever reason, cannot breastfeed, and things do happen, you can be a super healthy person, and then you get something and you have no milk. Things do happen. There were other ladies who had babies at the same time, and they will feed her baby for her. We need to resurrect that practice. So what I recommend to every pregnant lady, when you go to your antenatal classes, single out a few ladies in that group who look healthy, and talk to them and say, look, let's support each other, let's form a group, let's exchange phone numbers, email addresses, so if any of us cannot breastfeed for whatever reason, others can help. We can breastfeed each other's babies. Many women produce much more milk than is necessary for one baby. When I used to breastfeed my babies, I could feed 5 at the same time.
Wow.
I had so much milk. and there are many, many ladies like that who could be perfectly happily feed, 2 or 3 babies at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can express milk. Many women can't. It's best for any baby to take it right from the nipple. So it is best to have a few ladies in your neighborhood, not far away from you, to know them, who had babies at the same time as you had babies.
Well, that makes sense. Dr. Natasha, do you suggest then, because I know it's kind of rising in popularity, this concept of these milk banks where they're testing the milk and these women are, they're making sure they're healthy and that they're getting good milk. But is that doing, like you said, is it kind of not even worth it? Because by the time the milk gets to the person when they order it, it's kind of dead milk?
Exactly. You have to understand that it is the blood of the woman. It's alive.
That makes sense.
It has alive, active blood cells, immune cells, active enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and other things that are in the blood in an active, alive state. The longer that milk is out of the breast, the longer it's in the glass, or particularly when it's chilled, or microwaved, or pasteurized, or anything else done to it, this is a dead substance. It is pollution coming into the baby's body. It's no good anymore. It'll be even better to, rather than buying that, would be better to buy a goat and give the goat milk straight from the goat to the baby. Yeah.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot of people use goat milk. Is that something that's, maybe a third option?
Absolutely. Raw
goat milk,
and as fresh as possible. Literally straight from the goat to the baby while it's still warm, while it's still alive. Either goat or a cow. There are many babies who are brought up on a raw cow's milk. If it's a real cow, nature's, a breed of cow that Mother Nature has created. Not these Frankenstein cows that our scientists have created.
I know, right?
Those black and white Holstein Friesians. No. Real cows. And if this cow is on grass, on organic pasture, real cow, milk straight from her, millions of babies throughout years have grown up on that milk from the beginning very healthily.
Are there any downsides to raw animal products like the raw goat milk or cow milk for babies that have an immune system that's not fully in place yet?
It'll strengthen their immune system. It'll create it.
I see.
It'll create their immune system because this is, blood is the immune organ. It has all the immune cells are there in the blood. All the lymphocytes and leukocytes and neutrophils and macrophages and the rest of it. So that's what will be coming in. And whatever milk is available to the person. I have a whole group of patients in Greece who milk their donkeys. So babies have donkey milk. In Canada, we have people who milk reindeer. In the Middle East, we have people who milk camels. So many animals can be milked. And their milk, as long as it is raw and completely natural and very, very fresh, can be used as a substitute.
So if the mother can't produce any and she doesn't know any people, friends in the area, that's
just go buy a camel.
Just go buy a camel. There you go.
Or go on Facebook and throw out a plea.
Yeah.
I live right here. Here's my postcode. Are there any breastfeeding ladies around? Please contact me.
I love it.
I think that would work even better.
It probably would.
I find it really alarming in my family. It's so sad, but I remember my mom got sick a few months back, and I said, Mom, while you're taking that antibiotic, unfortunately she did, I said, you should also be, replenishing with probiotics. And my dad looked at my mom and he goes, I don't think you should take those. Once the antibiotics are done, I don't think probiotics are a good thing to be taking just, around the clock. And I am like, putting my head in my hands going, people are so misinformed. And it's like, we can't get enough strains of probiotic no matter what they are.
Absolutely. The bigger diversity we have of microbes in our digestive system, the more harmony there will be.
So disturbing.
The less the diversity is, the more we've killed off, this bunch and that bunch, the less the diversity, the more trouble we will get from it.
Well, that brings up a question that I've heard conflicting information on in terms of people taking not probiotics, but people that take antibiotics. I constantly hear different information in terms of at what point they should start introducing the probiotics during their, let's say they're doing a 7-day round or a 14-day round of antibiotics. When do you think they should start doing the probiotics?
Start it right from the beginning.
Okay.
Take it during the antibiotic period. Continue taking them. Obviously not in the same mouthful with antibiotics at different times. Just schedule your day. And eat plenty of fermented foods. Drink kefir, drink yogurt, eat yogurt, eat sauerkraut, make your fermented salads, make your kvass. Making kvass is very, very easy. You just put any fruit into a jug of water, add some water, and leave it at room temperature over there. It'll go fizzy, and that's your kvass, basically. It's a fermented drink. And that's what you need to do all throughout. And when the antibiotic course is finished, then continue taking probiotics, even increase the dose, and eat a GAPS introduction diet. Basically boil a chicken in a pan of water with some salt for a couple of hours, and drink that meat stock and eat that chicken and make soup with that meat stock by adding some vegetables and cooking them well. And if you eat only that and nothing else, and plus kefir and yogurt for a few days, your gut flora will restore itself.
So that's a huge part of the GAPS diet. We haven't really even gotten into it much, but the stock and the bone broth, that's a huge part of resealing the gut, isn't it?
Absolutely. These are the foods that heal the digestive system. They're very soothing for the digestive system. They're very gentle. They digest beautifully, and they provide all the necessary nutrition for the human body to thrive on. These are the foods that babies should be weaned onto. Not the baby rice, for God's sake. Not cereals, not powdered milk, not other commercial things that are pushed on us. Not at all. People in traditional societies knew this, and the first thing they would give the baby that is coming off the breast, or when you want to introduce solids, is a chicken stock, or a beef stock, or a lamb stock, whatever their meat is that they're using. Or fish stock, if that's what people have. They will just start the bouillon. That's all. And then they will add some chicken, which is this bouillon was made with. And then they will cook a few vegetables in there. And then they'll start adding raw egg yolk into that. And they will start adding kefir or yogurt. Milk fermented at home for 24 hours.
You said the raw egg yolk, are the egg whites not necessarily as good for babies?
They're very good, but they are more complex carbohydrates, and they cause reactions in many children. All allergy to egg, in fact, vast majority of allergy to egg is to the egg white.
The egg
not
white,
the yolk.
Okay.
Because the yolk is single amino acids, lots of zinc, lots of B vitamins. It literally doesn't require digesting. It doesn't need digestion. It absorbs as it is, raw egg yolk. It's the most beautiful food on the planet.
It's interesting because I have an allergy, or I don't know if I have an allergy, but on my latest blood test, it said I was sensitive to eggs. But that's probably like what you're saying. I'm probably sensitive to the egg whites.
Possibly, absolutely. And that's the real allergy we're talking about. The food intolerances, which are not the true allergy. The true allergy will cause an anaphylactic type reaction. Your lips will swell, your breathing will become difficult, and it can be dangerous.
So that's really what they mean by allergy then?
Exactly. That's the true allergy.
Okay.
The food intolerances are due to the fact that the gut wall is damaged, porous, and leaky, so foods don't get the chance to be digested properly before they absorb. And when they absorb in this undigested state, the immune system finds them, looks at them and says, "You're not food. I don't recognize you as food," and attacks them. And this attack and the complexes that form as a result cause the intolerances. They can cause a plethora of symptoms, any symptom under the sun. Can be a migraine attack, can be a panic attack, can be asthma attack, can be a skin rash, can be cystitis, can be, drop in your blood sugar level or drop in your energy or palpitations, anything, any kind of symptom. And the symptom can be immediate or it can be delayed. So you might be, on any given day, you have no idea what you're exactly reacting to. You might be reacting to a piece of lamb you've just eaten, plus tomatoes you ate yesterday, plus bananas you've eaten a few days ago, and plus something else you've eaten 2 weeks ago. And people do testing and get all the results and start removing foods and removing foods and removing foods and finish up with virtually nothing left to eat in their diet, and they're still reacting. Because as long as your gut is like a sieve, you are absorbing everything undigested, and you'll be reacting to everything. So instead of doing this test, and instead of removing foods out of your diet, focus on healing and sealing your gut wall. Once you've closed those holes up in the gut lining, once it's rebuilt itself, the food will start digesting properly, and all these reactions will disappear.
Now, I wanted to ask you about heavy metals, and this is an issue that Kate is dealing with at the moment, possible mercury for having her amalgams removed improperly a few years ago. But, a lot of people do have heavy metals, whether it's mercury or not. What are your thoughts about detoxing those and how the GAPS diet affects that?
I have family after family who come to me with a watch of tests, worth of many, many thousands of dollars or pounds. And invariably, one of the tests is for toxic metals. And particularly in autistic children, they're usually high because the detoxification system in the body is broken down. We have a so-called detox system in the human body with the headquarters in the liver and departments in every cell. And it's a mighty system which has ways of removing toxins out of the human body, which our science hasn't even discovered yet, hasn't dreamt of yet. It's an extremely effective system. But what happens in a person with abnormal gut flora? There's a river of toxins coming out of the gut and hitting the liver, so this system gets broken down. In all of these patients, the detox system is broken down. That is why they're accumulating toxins. They're not handling them very well. It can be broken down completely or partially. So what I tell these people, before we even think about these metals, you need to first work on restoring your own detox system with the GAPS nutritional protocol, because that's what it will do. It will restore your own detox system. It will nourish it. It will rebuild it. And then we retest about a year down the road. And in more than 85% of these patients, we find when we retest that the metals are gone. We didn't have to do anything about it because the body has handled it itself and the body knows how to do it. But you have to understand also about metals, that the bulk of metals is removed out of the body through the bowel. So whatever chemical chelation you might use or natural chelation you might want to use, it will remove the mercury out of its storage sites from the brain, from the fat tissues, from endocrine system, into the bloodstream, conjugate it, chelate it, but then it will deliver that mercury to the wall of the bowel, transport it across the wall of the bowel inside the digestive system, and then that will be removed in the stool. That is why chelating protocols always cause diarrhea, because mercury is extremely toxic, lead is extremely toxic, other toxic metals are very toxic. One has to have a very robust and strong, well-functioning digestive system in order to handle chelation. We're dealing with people in whom the digestive system is their weak point. They have a serious digestive disorder. Trying to chelate metals in that situation is a very bad idea because you make the whole situation much worse and you damage the gut even more, much deeper. And that can trigger Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or something even more serious in the digestive system. That is why one has to work, at least for a year, on restoring their digestive system first, making it strong and robust. And as that is happening, the detox system will get off the floor and will start working. And chances are, by the end of that year, your metals will be gone and you will not need to do anything about it.
So it's just, you recommend a year for that? Because I was just going to ask, at what point would you know that you are fully back up and functioning in terms of your digestion so that you could go through, if you wanted to go through with a separate detox? How would you know?
All digestive symptoms are gone.
They're
no
just
diarrhea,
gone.
no constipation, no gas, no pain, no nausea, no reflux, no indigestion, none of that.
I see.
None of the symptoms. If a person didn't have any of those symptoms, still try to go on the GAPS protocol and start taking fermented foods. The most powerful chelators known to man for toxic metals are probiotics. The probiotic bacteria in their cell wall have certain substances which chelate toxic metals and neutralize them and remove them out of the system. So the fact that we are not doing chemical chelation doesn't mean we're not chelating. The GAPS nutritional protocol is full of measures that are chelating, but they are doing it in a natural, safe way, gently, and at the same time healing the gut and restoring the detox system of the person.
Really interesting. How often? Oh, did you want to ask something?
No, you go ahead. I'll ask after.
Okay, I was going to ask how often, for someone who's really interested in health, like all of our listeners, and they do different protocols, and maybe they follow specific diets. We have all kinds of different listeners that do different types of diets, but putting them all as a general whole, as being a little bit more healthy, and probably a bit more healthy than the average population. How often would you recommend someone go on the GAPS protocol to heal their gut, and for how long do you think they should do that?
Well, the beauty of GAPS diet is that you don't have to be on it for life.
Okay.
Well, once your gut has healed, you can introduce all the rest of the foods. Obviously, not going back on junk and
no donuts.
Yes, that's right, and non-foods. These things actually have no right to be called with a noble name food. They're not foods. Yes, all these chemical things.
That's true.
But life happens. We travel. We get viruses. We get stressful periods of time. We get exposed to things. So if a person gets a bout of diarrhea, it's a good idea. Again, boil the chicken. Make a chicken stock, and just drink that stock all day long. Eat that chicken, and eat kefir and yogurt with it. And your diarrhea, whether it's a virus or traveler's bug or anything else that happened, will clear quickly and permanently without any lasting effect. And you won't need to take drugs, and you won't need to run to the doctor.
So it should be sort of a thing that people do, every so often, and just as part of their regular diet and part of their regular routine, then, it sounds like.
Absolutely. A bowl of soup should be a daily occurrence. A bowl of homemade soup. And the basis of any homemade good soup is the meat stock. Good meat stock, which you made yourself at home by cooking a joint with bones in it and meats and gelatinous meats in a pan with water with some salt and black pepper for a few hours.
Now,
The meat that comes out of that is delicious and very edible. You serve it as a dinner, but the meat stock is rich and wonderful, and that's what we drink, and that's what we make the soup with.
Now, how important are organ meats, do you think?
Very important, because organ meats have a much higher density of nutrients in them than muscles of the animal. Liver has some nutrients. Liver rates 100 times higher, such as folates, for example, and some other B vitamins, than a steak, than a muscle meat.
Now, are there any issues with the detoxification organs like the liver in today's toxic world? Are there issues with people eating these types of organ meats because they're maybe more concentrated?
That's a very common question. The fact that liver is a detox organ doesn't mean that it stores toxicity.
Okay.
It neutralizes it and it removes it from the body. It moves it around, but it doesn't store it.
It doesn't store it.
The liver is not a storage site for toxins. That's why liver is clean and perfectly safe to eat.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I have heard doctors on our show talk about, there was one doctor in particular, I think Lawrence Wilson, does a lot of the hair tests and things for heavy metals. And he was a huge fan of animal foods, but he said that you have to be, unfortunately, in today's world, you have to be so much more careful, especially when eating organ meats of animals. And so he said in general he doesn't recommend that, but he's a big proponent of it. And if you can get it clean, then that's ideally the way to go. So you're talking about like organic, grass-fed, and these really great cows that are raised correctly, right?
Well, obviously it's best to get the best you can get. But I have many families, in fact, more than 50% in my clinic, who have very limited funds. And these people could not afford to buy organic or grass-fed or anything special. They could hardly afford to buy the plain kind of meat. So they just bought whatever they could buy from the local butcher, and they recovered. They recovered. What you have to understand, that animals have a powerful detox system themselves. So whatever toxins they're exposed to, their detox system will handle to quite a degree. Yes, they will store many toxins in their tissues, but still meat is safer to eat, non-organic meat, than a carrot that has been directly sprayed. Because the carrot doesn't have the same detox system. And when it comes to meats, what I recommend to people, to buy meat in bulk. Once you found a farmer who grows a few lambs and you went and spoke to the person and you see that those lambs are on grass and they're not fed anything chemical and there is no incinerator next door or a big motorway or something else like that, buy a whole lamb. It will cost you a third cheaper than buying bits and pieces here and there. Ask the butcher to cut it for you into pieces the way you want it and put it in the freezer. All it takes is to buy a second-hand freezer and put it in your garage or somewhere else. And you've got lamb for about a year. It'll last you for a year or at least for half a year. If you buy 2 lambs, definitely. For a family of 4, it'll last you for more than a year. Buy half a pig, buy a quarter of a cow. When you found the real animal and you can buy it directly from the farmer, it usually works at least a third less expensive. And you get all the bits and pieces. When you do that, you will find that the butcher actually throws in a lot of bits for free. Because nobody wants them. Nobody wants a majority of the population. They don't want the liver. They don't want the kidneys. They don't want the beef tongue. Absolute delicacy, beautiful meat. They don't want the hearts. They don't want feet. They don't want heads. and other most valuable nutritionally foods. The head is far more valuable and the feet are far more valuable than steak. So you can get a lot for free as a result. All it takes, I say, is to buy a couple of second-hand freezers and you're set for the year.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, and it's great economically if you can afford the upfront money, because anything you buy in little smaller packages, whether it's meat or anything else, is going to be a lot more expensive. And
it's getting popular too, the animal sharing,
Yeah, it's getting a lot more popular. People are becoming more in touch with their food. A lot of people are starting to do their own hunting now.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
That's very good. Very good. Because when you buy meat in the supermarket in particular, you don't know what you're buying.
Right.
And it is overpriced. You're always paying much more than you should.
Now, Kate, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, we had an interesting question a long time ago in the chat room. There's so many great questions, it's hard to get to all of them, but I think it's an important topic to cover. It seems like the SIBO, the small intestinal bacteria overgrowth issue, is becoming very popular these days. Can you explain that and maybe the differences between that and regular, what we call leaky gut, if there is any, and what people go about doing about that?
Well, that's the part of abnormal gut flora. It's basically the bacteria which are supposed to live in the bowel travel up into the intestine.
Okay.
Because intestine doesn't have a very rich gut flora. It has much less bacteria living in it than the bowel is supposed to have. And it gets populated because they travel up, because there are some toxins in there and the food is not being digested properly. And this bacteria go there to help, to digest it for you, to handle the whole situation. But of course they do it in their own way, which is not exactly appropriate for the human physiology. And they produce a lot of gas and a lot of other substances which make the person very uncomfortable. Cause irritable bowel syndrome, largely. Irritable bowel syndrome symptoms, usually. So just follow the GAPS nutritional protocol. The introduction diet will clear it.
And that can actually heal the leaky valve that she was speaking of?
Absolutely. The GAPS introduction diet is the most effective way of healing and sealing the gut wall that I know of. I don't know of any other way that will do it so effectively.
It's so interesting.
Great.
What are your thoughts about people eating raw meat?
Raw meat was a normal part of human diet for millennia, for a very, very long time. There's nothing wrong with it. And in fact, recipes of it remained in all the traditional cultures. Italians have got dishes like that, carpaccio, and some other recipes. French have this kind of dishes. Spanish have this kind of dishes, and Croatians and other cultures around the Mediterranean. There's nothing wrong with eating raw meat, as long as it's very fresh and it's clean and it hasn't been contaminated. And if you marinate it a little bit, it's more digestible because all the enzymes are still alive. They're not damaged by cooking because cooking destroys enzymes in the meat, and the meat is full of active enzymes. So it actually digests itself to quite a degree, the raw meat. So it's easier to digest. So for any person who is not producing enough digestive enzymes, for example, girls who come out of anorexia, they're not producing any enzymes. And people who come out of a fasting, of a prolonged fast, there are many people who try to fast on water or some other, or mono diets or something like that. Their production of digestive enzymes is usually down to zero. They're not producing digestive enzymes. It is a very good idea to start with a raw diet. And not only raw vegetables and fruit, as most fasting clinics recommend, but raw meat as well. Add raw meat, raw eggs to that, and raw dairy from the beginning, and the digestive enzymes will start working and start producing.
So people could do a sort of a diet, a GAPS diet, and add some raw meat into that and get those beneficial enzymes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. It's just culturally many people don't find it acceptable.
Yeah, it doesn't sound all that great. But if you're at your wit's end, and a lot of people are that are probably going to be listening to this show, trying to solve their digestive issues. I mean, some people will really try anything.
Absolutely, and it's delicious. If you just cut it into, the softer bits, breast of the chicken, for example, should be eaten raw or very, very lightly cooked, because otherwise it goes tough and dry and not very nice. So the raw breast of the chicken, particularly organic, very fresh chicken, cut into bite sizes, add half a lemon, juice of half a lemon in there, add a teaspoon of honey to that, salt, pepper, a few herbs, leave it to marinate for a couple of hours. Beautiful.
So the chicken, it's funny because the chicken seems to be one of the animals that people are the most averse to eating raw, because I don't know, what do they say? The chicken is the conventional idea that chickens have more parasites, or what's the deal with people not wanting to eat raw chicken?
If the chicken is a free-ranging, healthy chicken, it's perfectly safe.
It's going to be okay.
Absolutely, perfectly safe. Because a chicken that is contaminated with salmonella will produce eggs which are contaminated by salmonella, and she will be ill. There will be symptoms. She'll have diarrhea, and her feathers will not be so good, and her eyes will not be so good. So it will be clearly seen that the chicken is unhealthy. So when you're buying a chicken, make sure you know where you're buying it from.
Yeah, I think that's really important, people getting in touch with their food and where their food comes from. And
that does make sense. You go to the grocery store, you're seeing the packaged parts of the animal. How are you ever supposed to know what the animal looked like or where it came from?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I certainly wouldn't buy meat in a supermarket and then eat it raw. No.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely not.
No, you want a very different meat for eating raw.
Yeah.
I hear that. So I wanted to ask you, too, a lot of people that are in our alternative health community and things like that, it seems like a lot of vegans do this, but a lot of people do this, too. They'll do things like the colonics. I've done a couple colonics and enemas, and you hear different things from people in terms of how those practices affect the gut flora. What are your thoughts about these things?
They're very helpful, can be tremendously helpful. In fact, enemas, regular enemas, are a part of GAPS nutritional protocol for many people.
Oh, okay.
Particularly people who are constipated or compacted or very, very toxic people. Because it unloads, it removes a huge amount of toxicity in one go out of the body. I had autistic children who spoke their first words after their first enema. Never spoke before. And they were in context and they were sensible words. You're removing a huge amount of toxins out of the body, particularly if you do a proper cleansing enema where you really empty the bowel with the enema.
That's amazing.
Enemas are much cheaper and you're more in control. And you can, the enema kit will cost you, $20 or something, and it'll last you a lifetime. where colonic irrigations are very good, but they're expensive, and any good practitioner will not just recommend one procedure. They will recommend a course of procedures.
Course of them. Yeah, there's a book a while back that I read called, what was it called? It was by Norman Walker. It was, it was something about, I'll put it in the show notes, but it was a guy named Norman Walker, and there's stories of him living to 117, but there's some debate about that. But he recommended people do a course of colonics. I think his practice was 6 colonics a year, so I think it was 2 per week for 3 weeks, once a year, every year, for as far as colonics go. I always thought that was interesting.
Norman Walker was a great proponent of. I wouldn't recommend any kind of regular things like that out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
No, you do them as they need it. If you've got a headache, if you feel toxic, if you feel nauseous, if you just, and you know you've abused yourself, you know that you've eaten something wrong or abused yourself, it's a good idea to do an enema. A very good idea. It'll clean, remove a huge amount of toxicity out.
So is the beneficial parts of the enema and the colonics, assuming that they flush out beneficial bacteria, which you may disagree or agree with, but let's assume they do, are the beneficial aspects of these things so good that you would take that chance and then restore the beneficial bacteria after them?
They don't flush beneficial bacteria out. All they flush is the masses. Your gut flora lives on the wall of the digestive system. It doesn't float in the middle.
Oh, okay.
So what's in the stool, and that's the only thing that will leave, is not your gut flora. Your gut flora lives on the wall of the digestive system, and it can be very different to the composition of what's in the stool.
I see. So you can't really, because every time you get a colonic, I think they recommend you refill with probiotics, but what you're saying is
that's a good idea. That's a good idea to put some probiotic in there, and you can put lots of other things in the enema. But don't worry, you're not going to remove your gut flora.
Yeah, you'd just die, wouldn't you? That would be no good.
Yeah.
So I like what you said about that, though. Kind of just do these things as you feel toxic. I think that a lot of people, and me included, are coming out of this paradigm where we're looking for protocols and looking for something that you do all the time or once a year or a cleanse once a year. But I like what you said about that, because it really means that you're going back to listening to how your body feels, and you're getting in touch with your body.
It's your own body that maintains your health, and your own body that has an ancient wisdom programmed into it. Your mind is a little young monkey which knows nothing compared to that wisdom that your body has. It's 4 billions of development through evolution. So your body knows what it's doing at every moment in your existence. You just have to listen to it and work with it rather than throw things at it.
Recently I like what you said too about the eggs too, because I have a food sensitivity to eggs, and we recently got some duck eggs, some organic duck eggs from the store, and I'm going to try doing what you did, what you talked about doing, the raw yolk. I used to do raw eggs more often, but it was funny. I didn't seem to have an issue with the raw eggs. I did a whole egg, but I seem to have an issue if I cook the eggs. But I'm curious now. I'm going to try the duck egg yolk raw, and I'm sure I'll be fine. I bet that would be.
You'll be absolutely fine. Do you juice? Do you make some juices?
We do. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, we do that a lot.
Well, once you've made your glass of juice, break the egg into it, and initially you can just put the yolk. Or if you, don't feel that there'll be any reaction, put the whole egg in there, put the yolk and the white, and add a dollop of homemade sour cream or coconut oil, and whisk the whole thing. And that'll make a milkshake consistency. It'll turn your juice into a kind of a milkshake. We call it the GAPS milkshake.
Wow.
And that makes it far more cleansing and far more balanced. It will not cause a spike of blood sugar rising from the juice. And it also unblocks the biliary tree in your liver, because many people have their bile ducts blocked up by stones in the liver, and these are the chronically constipated people.
So this would be a way for people to
bile. Yeah, and this kind of milkshake will unblock your liver, will cleanse it, and will provide a lot of nutrition for your body, and very easy to digest.
That sounds really good, because we had a guy, Agenus Vonderplanitz, on the show before he passed away a couple of years ago, and he was talking about when you eat raw eggs, they could be digested in, I think, about 26 or 27 minutes. So adding a raw egg to a juice, because juices are very digestible. That sounds like it would be a great combination. Probably very building too.
It's very good breakfast. It's a very good breakfast.
That sounds
And
interesting.
egg white, the recent research has shown that raw egg white is a great chelator of toxic metals.
Really? The raw egg white?
Raw egg white. When you cook it, it loses that ability.
Does it matter if the egg is from a duck or a chicken, or does that matter?
I don't think it does. I don't think we have the research into this variety.
Yeah, no one's looking at this, are they? We need people on this.
Yes, but I would imagine that it doesn't. I think they all provide their own wonderful benefits.
Yeah, I've heard you say too that juicing is more. It's more of a cleansing thing. You're not really getting a lot of building elements from a good low sugar green juice, are you?
Well, on my blog, drnatasha.com, I have an article called Feeding versus Cleansing, which explains the whole vegetarian and vegan concept. What people don't understand, that Mother Nature provided us with two groups of foods from animals and foods from plants, plant matter and animal foods. Mm-hmm. And it is the animal foods which are feeding and building for the human body. And they are the easiest for the humans to digest because our digestive system is designed in such a way that it best digests meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plant foods are largely indigestible for the human digestive system. They go through us undigested, particularly in the raw state. All we derive from them is just a bit of juice, a few antioxidants, some vitamins, a few minerals, a few bits and pieces, which are largely cleansing for the human body. So plants are cleansing for the body, while animal foods are building and feeding the body.
That's really interesting. What are your thoughts and takes on I've heard, gosh, I can't remember the books offhand, but I remember reading books years ago. I did a sort of a raw vegan diet for 7 years, and I remember in that time you get really into these things and stuff, and I remember reading these books, and they're talking about how when people eat meat, it sort of putrefies and it does not digest in the body. But
yes, that's a vegan dogma, and that's a nonsense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem true.
Yeah. It's absolute nonsense. Meat is the easiest thing to digest for the human beings. I have patients in my clinic who live entirely on animal foods. They eat no plant matter at all. And these children and adults, they recover from all sorts of colitis and Crohn's disease, come off all medication, all steroids, their digestive system starts functioning, recover from schizophrenia, from obsessive compulsive disorders. But whenever they try to touch any amount of plant matter, a leaf of mint, a tiny bit of, lettuce or anything like that, their symptoms return. So this just demonstrates to me, my clinical practice and my patients, that human beings can live beautifully entirely on animal foods without any plant matter at all. But human beings cannot live entirely on plants without animal foods. Vegetarian cultures around the world who thrived are cultures which include some animal foods into their menu. And these are lacto-vegetarians who eat a lot of dairy, and people who eat eggs, and they occasionally maybe eat fish. So the feeding and building for the body comes from those foods, from the milk and dairy and from the eggs. But all the plants that these people are consuming are cleansing. Mm-hmm. Human beings knew this in the traditional cultures. They knew that animal foods are the most valuable for them. But there were periods of time when they couldn't obtain it, so they created many methods to make plant matter a little bit more digestible, a little bit more feeding rather than just cleansing, by cooking it in special ways and fermenting it. Fermentation in particular pre-digests the plant matter, makes it more digestible for the humans, and more nutrients are available in the plant matter after fermentation. But cooking takes the plants out of the realms of cleansing foods. They lose their cleansing ability and become a little bit more feeding.
So when you were just saying that, I think people's first objections would be, what about cholesterol? You know, a lot of the listeners of our show understand that cholesterol isn't as much of an issue as it's being portrayed to be, but what would you say to people who are concerned with eating a lot of animal foods and their cholesterol?
I've got a book called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, where I explain the whole concept of where heart disease comes from, what really causes it, and what doesn't cause it. The idea that animal fats and cholesterol cause heart disease was a hypothesis which was suggested in 1953 in Pennsylvania. And since then, billions have been spent around the world to try and prove that hypothesis correct. And the more the science worked on it, the more they proved it wrong. In the last 20 years, it has been conclusively proven wrong. Trouble is that while the science was working on this hypothesis, a very large and very powerful commercial and political machine grew based on this hypothesis. Pharmaceutical industry is making billions, food industry is making billions, medical industry is making billions, and governments make billions in the West. And the more the science is shouting that the hypothesis is wrong, that cholesterol and animal fats do not cause heart disease, in fact they reverse it and prevent it, the stronger becomes the propaganda from that political and commercial machine, because they've invested too much into this. So that's basically the upshot of the situation.
Yeah.
But the reality is that cholesterol is one of the most essential nutrients for the human body. We cannot live without it. Your brain is like a sponge. About 40% of brain structure is made out of cholesterol. The other 40% made out of saturated fatty acids. And if you stop having cholesterol, your brain starves. This is such an important nutrient for the human body that blood cholesterol doesn't come from food. It is produced by your liver. Blood cholesterol is maintained by the liver in every person. And the liver is in touch with the rest of the body. So when the brain needs cholesterol, it gives a command to the liver, I need cholesterol. The liver manufactures it, sends it into the bloodstream, the blood delivers it to the brain. And while that's happening, your blood cholesterol is high. When your adrenals need to produce some hormones because you're under stress, all steroid hormones in the body are made from cholesterol. Your adrenal hormones, your sex hormones, and other steroid hormones in the body. So the adrenals will call to the liver and say, I need some cholesterol. The liver will manufacture it, put it in the blood, and the blood will deliver it to adrenals. And so your blood cholesterol will be high while that is happening when you're under stress. If you've been to the dentist, or you had an operation, or you had a trauma, your tissues are damaged, they need to heal. No healing in the body can happen without involvement of large amounts of cholesterol and saturated fatty acids. So again, these damaged tissues will shout for help to the liver will manufacture it, put it in the bloodstream, and the blood will deliver it to the place of damage to heal it. So your blood cholesterol will be high. And try to measure after visits to the dentist or having an operation, your blood cholesterol is always very high. Trouble is, we have a group of people in our modern, very toxic world who are so toxic, these people, that biochemical machine in the liver that manufactures cholesterol is broken down, doesn't work. And these people have consistently low blood levels of cholesterol. Research in American prisons has demonstrated the fact that about 90% of all violent offenders, murderers, and other people with poor self-control and violence have low blood cholesterol. In these people, that machine, that factory in their liver that manufactures cholesterol is broken down. As a result, these people have low blood cholesterol. Their brain is starving for cholesterol. That is why they're violent. That is why they have such low self-control. That is why they cannot behave themselves, these people. And indeed, one of the major symptoms of cholesterol pills that people take, statins, is the personality changes of the person. They become grumpy and unpleasant to live with. Usually spouses start complaining in a matter of, days after they start taking these pills.
That's true.
Because the brain starves. And the same happens with many of our teenagers, our youngsters, who eating very poor diets and possibly abusing some illicit drugs or something else. That machine in the liver is broken down. It's not producing cholesterol. So these youngsters must have eggs and bacon for breakfast. They must have plenty of cholesterol in their diet to provide the body with some cholesterol, to give it a hand.
That makes a lot of sense. And
more eggs, less violence.
Yeah, more eggs, less violence. I like that.
More eggs, less violence, exactly. So for those who want to understand that issue in detail, please read my book called Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, What Really Causes Heart Disease and What Can We Do to Prevent It or Even Reverse It.
Well, you know what? If it's anything like how good your book is, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, I'm sure it's going to be an amazing book for people.
It explains the concept, and it's fully referenced, so you can give it to your doctor.
I love that.
Wonderful.
Well, you know what? I want to be cognizant of your time today. I know you've had a long day. Well, we didn't even get into oil pulling or food combining, anything like that. So autoimmune diseases. But thank you so much, Dr. Natasha, for being on the show today.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
You're so welcome. Hang on the line there, Dr. Natasha. We're going to close out our live show, and I just want to let everyone know, gosh, we had quite an amazing chat room today.
I have a full page of notes over here that we weren't able to get to so many people's questions. I'm so sorry, you guys. We tried our best to kind of jump around, but we also wanted to stay on target a little. So sorry we couldn't get to everybody.
Maybe we'll have to have her back on, but go visit her website, dr-natasha.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well as gaps.me. And if you're looking for the show notes for this show, it's episode 379. So that will be available as soon as the podcast becomes available. And I want to thank all you guys for joining us in the live show. We really appreciate it. I want to thank you for all your support and sharing our shows and going to extremehealthradio.com/join and learning how to support us either financially or not financially. Lots of different ways to do that. So we appreciate that a lot. And we'll be back next Friday. Let me take a quick look.
With Dr. Lane Freeman, I believe.
Is that Dr. Lane Freeman? Mm-hmm. Yes, Dr. Lane Freeman next Friday. So make sure to join us. We're going to be talking about oral pathology and how that relates to our overall health. She was the doctor that removed my mercury fillings.
Yes, in Texas with Dr. Nunley. She's amazing.
So that would be a great show. Make sure to join us on that. And thank you, everyone, for being in the live show. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
This is very good. You too. Have a lovely time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The best to you.
You
Bye.
too.
Okay, we're off the air. Baby Kate.
Baby Kate just had a little cough.
Had a baby cough for Baby Kate. How do you like them apples?
Apple sounds good right now, actually.
I wish there was a way for us to sort of put this part of our show on the live show, but in order to do that, we'd have to go back to being live, which is kind of challenging. But I like this. People can now listen to this as part of the podcast. They don't get it live, but so that encourages them to listen to this.
Yeah, get a little extra.
Yeah, right?
I think what's hard is that it's such a bummer as we're talking right now. There's still like tons of people in the chat room going back and forth, and it's hard to concentrate because I want to get in there and be like, wrap up the show and talk with our about our thoughts on stuff that we just talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It's good though.
Yeah, what was going on in the chat room? Lots of people talking, huh?
Oh my gosh, so many good questions. That's one show I felt really bad because I know how she's just I think she's just the mother of gut healing, obviously. Everyone knows her. She's super popular. It's hard to really come up across somebody in the health field who hasn't heard of the GAPS diet, you know?
Right.
If you go online, it's just GAPS this, GAPS that. Everybody, especially these mothers trying to heal their children of, autism and other kinds of behavioral problems. And she's just so popular. So I felt bad. There were so many good questions that I thought, oh, she's like a 4-part series. We could have her on 4 times and not even get all the questions answered. But I mean, there was great questions that we didn't get to, like Kaya asked about the GAPS diet, how she's been doing it, but she tries the fermented cod liver oil and it gives her severe headaches. And she knows she has heavy metal issues. So she's like, is that what's causing that? And then, Farmer Mark, he's so cool. He wanted to know her thoughts on taking probiotic capsules with or without food and also the time of day that she would recommend doing that. Because I know she talks about getting all the beneficial bacteria through our foods and fermented and other things. But, are probiotic capsules a complete waste of time and money? Or I'm sure they're better than nothing. But it just would have been so good to get into all these really great questions. People just had some really good questions. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. There's so many things that we didn't even get into and we didn't explore fully more the reasons why certain things were said, and but yeah, there's a lot of people with a lot of different issues, aren't there? Oh man, I've read her book, and reading it is kind of how I feel about Dr. Cutler's book. These people are brilliant, but it can be a little bit overwhelming, and you kind of don't know where to start. So I think anytime you really resonate with something, getting in some sort of a forum or support group to talk to people about how they do it. I feel like it needs to be like a 12-step program. Oh my gosh, the 12 I feel like GAPS should. For the GAPS program. I mean, it's definitely explained and outlined in detail, and I think that's what throws me is like, oh my gosh, like I wish I would just give you 12 steps, like you said, Yeah. But I really value understanding the reasons why we do things, and the information behind to be a little bit more informed going into any decision we make. But
for having a mercury-filled brain, I don't know if you do or not. Just for lack of a better phrase, you do pretty good doing the show and the chat room at the same time. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, afterward, I feel like I need a 10-hour nap.
Do you?
Yeah. My brain's like, woo. I spoke with a friend yesterday on the phone for a long time, one of our listeners of the show. It was really neat to talk with her. But I said, gosh, I'm surprised I've even been able to hold on and come this far, because I do have a hard time. I've said this on the show and after the shows before, formulating sentences and staying with my thoughts. And I just really attribute that to mercury and heavy metals in my body. But I'm pretty amazed at how I can kind of multitask and stick with a bunch of things, because a lot of people on these forums or things that you look into, the metal just ruins them and they end up laying in bed, just not being able to do anything, talking.
Yeah, they can't even say their own names.
My gosh, it's horrible.
So
I'm thankful.
So people that don't follow your blog on a regular basis, you've been talking about this a lot, but you went and did the mercury tri test. I keep wanting to say tri-field test, like the tri-field meter.
Yeah.
But you did the mercury tri test from our former guest, Dr. Christopher Shade. That was episode 156. We'll put his name down. We'll put a link to his show. But you did his test, and you're going to be getting that back pretty soon.
Hopefully next week, yeah.
And apparently his mercury test is the only test on the market today that fractionates and splits apart the mercury molecule. And there's two different types of mercury.
There's organic mercury and there's methyl mercury.
Okay.
And it actually, it can separate them and show you what levels specifically of each within the body and probably the known source. So it will tell you about fish versus, inorganic compounds.
Or like mercury amalgam fillings. It'll tell you, wow.
Yeah, it gives you a little chart, a little graph of where you stand with that. So, I mean, this didn't exist, a few years ago. So it's constantly these giant leaps being made in technology. And thank God. I mean, there's stuff about living in this day and age that I think is just ridiculous, and it's so hard and it's just overwhelming. And then there's things like that and seeing what they can do in a lot of, severely traumatic medical experience. If people, I still can't believe they can transplant organs. It just blows my mind. So
did you see there's
what a cool time to be alive.
People transplanting, or some doctors transplant a face transplant.
I've seen that too.
They're trying to do a head transplant. Have you heard about that?
Is it Walt Disney? Because he thought that was going to be, he hung around for that. Isn't there
They just brought Walt Disney back from the dead. Did you hear about that last week? It's just last Wednesday.
They brought him back for the 60th anniversary of Disneyland's reopening.
Oh, man.
Are they really trying to do that? A head transplant?
Yeah, I read about that. But
whose head?
Yeah, how do you do that? You think about the logistics, but then you think about the logistics of a face too. I mean, how do you do a face transplant? Where does a new face come from?
I understand tissue of a face though more than like someone's whole head. Like that'd be bizarre, because then you have their brain, you have a bunch of things. Like, what would that mean? You're creating these Franken people. That would just be bizarre.
Dude, that would be so crazy.
Wow.
You think that living in today's world is so crazy, but then you watch a movie like The Village, like we watched the other day.
That's a great movie, isn't it?
The 1820s or whatever 1850s. It wasn't so hot.
No.
Not so good.
No. I know everything's rose-colored glasses, right? I wouldn't want to live then, I'll tell you.
It's funny. I thought it was interesting that you brought that stuff about your parents and how your dad told your mom.
You better stop taking, you don't want to take probiotics just to take probiotics. You only take those when you're needing to, kind of bolster your system when you're taking an antibiotic. That just seems so great. I felt so bad because they're so uninformed. It just was uninformed people making silly comments, but.
Amazing, isn't it? Like, I mean, after talking to so many people, hundreds of people, and attending lectures and going to seminars and listening to workshops and going to reading books and all this stuff, I feel like there are so many different people, experts that have so many different opinions. And as you're listening to this show, I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. How, so-and-so says this. Dr. Natasha was talking about cholesterol and things like this, and I tend to agree with her. But we had, what is his name? Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn on the show, and he talks about how being vegan and a completely vegan vegetarian lifestyle is going to be what prevents and reverses heart disease. He's got a whole book on it. And so you have these two people, but it's so funny how you have all these different experts and information that we're exposed to from listener emails and things. And it's just so funny how your dad would tell your mom that. Like, there's just, I mean, I've done so little research in comparison to these experts, and then comparatively, he's done just as little amount from me to the expert, and then going down a rung from me to your dad.
Right.
But it's funny how he would say that to your mom. Like,
oh, it just made me so sad because I thought, gosh, you guys have, and these are just the, I think it actually was a decent brand that we take from the health food store, like of the capsules. Oh, okay. And at least she had that, but I thought she has no idea what she's doing to her flora right now. Like probiotics, I mean, they're going to help, but they're not even going to touch. And she's not getting the strains of like Dr. Natasha was talking about from kefirs and yogurts and things that are a lot more beneficial. I mean, at least she did something during the duration, but it just broke my heart when she was like almost afraid to take them after her course of antibiotics was done, thinking that they were going to damage her. And it was almost like she was like treating it like it was an Advil or an aspirin. Like, I don't know if I need it. It probably can only harm me. I'm just not going to do it,
Wow.
And how do you even begin a conversation like that with somebody, especially a family member? It's just awkward, and, they're going to do what they're going to do. But this is why we have shows like this, especially with Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. I mean, just it won't resonate with everyone. It won't work for everyone even. I mean, I've read her book. I tried the GAPS diet, not full on, but I delved in it, and I just have so many bizarre symptoms when you're dealing with a lot of things where I don't know if I could sustain myself on that for that amount of time. So.
Well, plus too, you have sensitivities to foods. You obviously have your peanut allergy, right, but you have a bunch of sensitivities to other foods. We think because of the heavy metals. So a lot of sulfur foods, you're unable to methylate correctly. So you have a lot of issues with, your body has a lot of issues with dealing with certain foods like that. So
and it's hard because I understand that this is supposed to repair all that. But it's like, I don't even know how I cannot, I mean, I've tried to drink bone broth for 3 days straight, and that's great, but it doesn't seem to make a difference with my gut. I feel good, but I'm not healed. Mm-hmm. So it's just, everybody's like, we were talking about Dr. Massey in the chat room saying that, how we've heard him say on other shows about how there's not a standard human being. So there's just not a standard answer, a standard of, protocol for everybody, because we all have our own, unique things thrown into the mix. So I'm going, wow, I love to do those fermented dairy and I can't do right at this point in my journey. I can't do any fermented food. So
right.
There's just, everybody's going to look a little different. I'm not throwing everything out. I'm just taking bits and pieces, and we kind of just have to come up with our own protocol based on what Dr. Natasha was saying today, how you feel.
You listen to your own body.
How do you feel? How does your body feel? How do your symptoms feel?
It's one of those things too, where you do certain things for certain amounts of time until you get the healing. And it's not as if, a certain protocol doesn't work. It may not work for you at a certain time because of a lot of different reasons, stress, metals, things like that. But then, you can come back to that and then, re-heal. What did you think about that sort of green shake that she talked about? That was pretty interesting.
I think it sounds like the worst idea ever.
I know,
I'm
right?
sure it's great. It just, the thought of it was like making me cringe. Blah.
I know,
Does
right?
it sound good to you?
No, it doesn't sound good.
Oh, okay, because you acted all excited about it.
But I am excited about it, though. I'm also excited about trying the, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's the hormone rebuilder shake that's put out by
thyroid shot.
Agenus Vonderplanitz, and it's a way to reset your thyroid for, according to him, for a year, with a particular sort of, it's like raw goat's milk, raw honey in a blender, brain.
That part's okay. Oh, and then you go down that road.
Liver, lungs, thyroid, and if you're a man, the testicles. If you're a woman, the ovaries. Blend it all that up, and you're good to go.
You'd almost have to give me like 5 shots of tequila before you give me 1 shot of that. I don't know if I could do
2 shots of happy, 1 shot of sad.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
I'm sure it does work. It's just the thought of that just ugh,
oh yeah,
gives me the creeps.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But I mean, I would do anything. It was like I was talking with the woman, our friend, on the phone yesterday. And we were both talking about how we don't like the energetic component of eating animals. We just don't.
Right.
We love animals. We have a very empathic soul. We're connected to our pets. It's very hard for us to eat animals, but we both have delved into the world, like you were saying, about raw vegan for a while, and that just doesn't resonate at certain times in life. So at this point, we're both eating meats, high quality meats.
Right.
But she was mentioning Daniel Vitalis, and she said, there's something so beautiful about the way he puts it that you should be able to hunt your own. I mean, you really should be willing to hunt your own food and kill it and eat it and go through the process if you're going to eat animals. And it's like in this modern day, we'll never have to do that unless we're in survival mode. But I thought, in survival mode, I would do that. I mean, we're capable of doing a lot in survival mode. We never think we were capable. I mean, people eat other people when you're surviving. I mean, you'll do things you never in a bazillion years would think you're going to do. So yeah, sure. Liver shot, smoothie thing. It's like, if I'm trying to get better and it's not surviving, but I know it's going to help me that much, I would do it, but it's not my first choice.
Yeah, it's not your first choice. It's just a way to sort of reset your organs. I'm sort of drawn to that, to the hunting idea.
Are you?
Yeah, I think one day if we ever had a big freezer where you could pack all the meat in, and you could hunt an animal and have meat for a year, and that would be, I don't know. I think there'd be something like I would hate to be connected to that cycle of life, but we are. If we eat it, we are, regardless of whether or not we want to be connected in that cycle of life or not. So unless really you can't even do it as a breatharian because you're killing microbes in the air.
You're always killing something, right? So just by being alive.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one day I would like to do that because I really think it gets you into the sacredness of life, the cycle of life. That would be so hard to do, to pull the trigger though on a just animal like that. It
would be so rough. Do you know what I'm going to get you for Christmas this year?
What's that?
Archery lessons.
Nice. Katniss Everdeen.
Good old Katniss.
Yeah.
That's something we are going to do this summer, though. We're going to go take an archery. Are
there places around here that we could do
There's a place about 25 minutes up.
Really?
So I think we're going to take a break between Dr. Bergman adjustments.
Oh, it's up north?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
I think it's in Fountain Valley.
Really?
But we're going to...
Is it outdoor or indoor?
That's a good question.
I wonder if it's probably outdoor.
I don't know, but we have it on our summer list of fun.
Yeah,
maybe we'll talk about that on our next Free For All Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Archery. I know. I who knows if I'd ever be able to do that, but I'm sure, like I said, I would do anything if I had to.
Yeah, I think it's so, I think I'm really kind of just into doing things that are not as mainstream and sort of, it takes you out of all that because, whether or not you like it, like we said, if you're eating meat, then you're in the cycle of life.
Yeah.
And so I think really going deep and connecting into that cycle of life is a powerful thing. I mean, the Native Americans did it. You get more connected and in tune with nature. You get more connected and in tune with the sacredness of life and what life means and how you're connected to all things. And I don't know. I think that if you're able to do that without hunting, that would be great. And you can do that.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean the way that we do it now?
Yeah, you mean just... What are you asking?
I thought you were saying it'd be great if there's a way to kill an animal without hunting it.
Oh, yeah.
like a magical, like we sprinkle dust on them, fairy dust, and all of a sudden they go to sleep.
Yeah. It's called chemtrails.
Oh, wait, we already have that.
Yeah. Oh, wait, we have that.
That was a good one.
Yeah, no, I just think that it's very important to be connected to all living things and to realize that life is sacred and precious and things. And, hunting is sort of a forced way to do that. It gets us out of our cookie cut box society that's completely fake from top to bottom, and it puts you into the realness of what life really is. And I don't know.
Absolutely.
It seems like one day that's going to happen. It almost seems like a sort of inevitable collision course. It's just you have no control over. Mm-hmm. At some point it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'll take you with me, Katniss.
Can we take Maggie with us?
Yeah, we'll take Maggie.
Maggie doesn't watch how we'll eat her. We will hunt you down, dog.
That's right.
I'm just kidding.
She's sitting.
I don't think she likes that. She just looked at me strange.
No, she'll attack you.
Poor Maggie. Just kidding.
So that was a good show. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. This was episode 379.
379.
So we'll put the show notes in extremehealthradio.com/379, and you can download those to your heart's content. Please pass the show on if you can to your friends, anyone who might be dealing with cholesterol issues or gut issues of any kind. We would greatly appreciate you sharing this show if you can as soon as it becomes available. What else? Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter if you don't want to miss a show. The newsletter is really cool because it gives you the previous 3 shows as well as the upcoming 3 shows. So you're sort of in this cycle of 6 shows. That way you'll never miss one, even if you forget to open an email. But in the email, you'll get all kinds of stuff that's going on with us. You'll get links to the articles that we've been writing, our audio blogs, different things we're doing on the website. You'll never miss anything, as well as different events that are going on too. We right now the Hay House World Summit's going on, and we'll put a link to that too in the show notes as well.
Have I loved that.
Yeah, such good stuff. So stay up to date with our newsletter. Text Get Healthy to 33444, and you can download our audio guide. and listen to how I used a particular protocol to overcome food addictions, which is pretty cool thing. I think that I was pretty proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah, and boy, did you.
Boy, howdy.
No, really, boy, howdy,
boy,
as my
howdy.
mom said. It really, sweet, sassy Melissa. You haven't said that for a while.
That's right.
That made a big difference with you.
Yeah.
In your health journey.
Yeah, it's one really powerful tip that I used to do that. So
awesome.
Pretty cool. And also, if you want to help keep the shows free, we'd greatly appreciate you going to this website. It's extremehealthradio.com/join. And we've got a couple different ways that you can support us on there, financially and not financially. Financially, it would be great if you do like our shows, you go to Patreon. And so if you go to extremehealthradio.com/join, you'll see the links for Patreon there. And you can donate to our shows on a per podcast basis, which is really cool. And the money comes out of your account only once a month. And so you can set, a lot of people do like $1 per show, which is $4 a month. And so that helps to keep the shows free and commercial free as well. So if we don't have enough of your support, we're going to have to go back to commercials, which none of us.
Who likes commercials?
Yeah. Phooey.
None
of us like commercials. So,
I have to give a shout out to Mark Anderson, who pledged this week to Patreon.
Oh,
$1.11. $1.11.
That's right.
That was awesome.
That's right.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
I love those ones that we know the meaning behind them. We're like, that's sneaky and fun.
He knows that we're a fan of numbers and things.
That was amazing. We also had, we had a couple regular donations that were through PayPal as well.
Oh, yeah.
We had one yesterday. Do you have a little list over there?
Yeah,
we had one from Chrissy Welch. Thank you, Chrissy. That was amazing.
I want to thank Albert, too. We thanked him on our last podcast for a donation. If many of you are listening and thinking, oh, I don't have any money, I'm a starving college student, Albert donated 20 cents an episode, which is 80 cents a month. And if all of you guys did that, that would be it would just be so incredible. $1 a month or $4 a month, $1 per show. I just love that $1.11 though.
That just made me so happy.
Mark Anderson.
It's really, to be honest though, guys, seriously, like we jumped up and down about 20 cents. We're like, this is awesome. Like we get so excited about every little thing. You guys can't see what goes on over here behind the scenes, but every donation, no matter how small it seems, is exactly what we are looking for. And when people really, I don't know, just take the time and figure they can somehow carve 80 cents out of their budget to keep the show going and keep getting guests like Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride on the show. It just tickles us and it continues our work. So
super cool, huh?
Thank you, Albert. That was so cool.
And Christina Hinkle for donating to us recently. Christina
so awesome. Rocks. Christina and Evan, thank you guys.
JD Boswell, Georgie, thank you so much for your support.
Oh my gosh.
These things come in and Kate and I, our eyes just get all wide and we get all happy. So thank you.
And then we cry. Just kidding.
That's awesome. But yeah, thank you for that. And also don't forget to bookmark our Amazon link, if you can. You don't have to buy anything health related. It could be books or household appliances, anything. But if you bookmark our link, we greatly appreciate that. That's another great way to keep our shows free, as well as sharing our shows on Facebook and things like that. So we thank all of you guys for your support and for just listening and being a part of what we do.
And for seriously just allowing us to attempt to go commercial free. It's just an experiment. Like you said at the beginning of the show, we'll see how it goes. We can't guarantee, but we prefer it. But yeah, it takes a tribe, a village.
Yeah. And I think that it makes the shows more flow better. I mean, that was a better show, I think, because we didn't have to break it up twice with commercials and have these little 20-minute segments. And I don't know, I just think it flows better.
I know.
And I want to be able to do that all the time and not have to worry about the money coming in order to keep the show going. But
right.
That's why we have our store with our products and things like that. So our
kick-ass products. Can I say that?
Kick-ass products.
I guess it's our show. We can say whatever we want.
Whatever we want.
Yes.
So
it's fun to watch it roll.
Well, it's 10:44. It's probably a good time to stop the show.
Awesome. Of course it is.
All right. So that was an hour and 40 minutes. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. We're going to go eat some breakfast. All I've had today is fruit.
You're going to try to go eat some egg yolk?
Let's see. Should I do an egg yolk? No, eggs, according to Adam Bergstrom, are a nighttime food.
Oh, and you have that whole thing to throw in.
Yeah, the timing of when you eat food. So listen to our shows with Adam Bergstrom. Yeah, eggs are an evening food because they're close to the ground.
That's right.
Probiotic nutrition. Anything 4 inches below And from 4 inches to 4 feet is midday food. And then from 4 feet above are morning foods, like fruit that are on the trees that get the first light of the sun.
Okay.
And then midday foods are more shrubs and different foods like that.
And to even put together a program like that is just
some midday foods. I don't know what examples of some of those are. And then evening foods are like eggs, root vegetables, fish. These are all evening foods because they're
right along the ground,
below the surface.
Are you going to miss your 44? Oh, it just changed. Well, we tried.
We tried.
Let's go eat something.
All right, cool, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Make sure to join us next Friday at extremehealthradio.com/live at 9 a.m. Pacific time for episode 380. And you can join us and get your questions answered with, what is her name? Dr.
Lane Freeman.
Lane Freeman. That's going to be a good show, oral pathology. So make sure to check that out. And that's it.
Have a wonderful week, you guys, wherever you are in the world, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Hey, everybody. This is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
That was so good.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview, packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as